Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Search. My name is Elliot Manning, Managing Director of Kayman in the UK and US. Today I am joined by Emilia Fasano, who is a Senior Manager at Deverell Smith in the property sector. I've worked with Emilia before. We've spoken many times. She's in a fantastic role at the minute. And Emilia, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. I guess, as you said, been working in property recruitment sort of all my career, mainly interim, and joined Deverell Smith back in March to kind of run and drive our interim public sector forward.
Amazing. Fine. So the whole point of this podcast, as we've, spoken about before, is predominantly to just explain to people, that are in recruitment or trying to get into recruitment, what it's like and what to expect. A lot of people that start out in that first year, you can never really see how you can become that manager and progress and go forward, right? Yeah. And we've all been there and done it. And, it's good to talk to people like yourself who, you spent 4 or 5 years at your first firm, in recruitment, and you smashed it. Tell us how. What's the trick?
Do you know what? I always look back on those first 3-4 years, and I'm like, it went so quickly. And like most people, I think, sort of walked into recruitment and didn't really know what I was getting into at all. And there's definitely those clicking points along the way, and you kind of look back and you're like, oh, that's where I got that, and that's where I got that. But I think a few things. I think first of all, kind of the business that I joined at the time, where they were and kind of where they were going, definitely helped me kind of, they were a small business, and with a small business you can grow with them. And I think personally I really quickly understood what I needed to do to build kind of a reputable brand within the market. I'm also someone that believes a lot in hard work. I stayed late, I put in the hours, and I guess I'm all about small goals, small wins, and there was just mini targets to get to along the way.
Brilliant. So tell me, when you joined recruitment, what kind of point did you realize or sort of think, I want to be a manager, I want to lead, I want to do a bit more of this, after a few years in the firm, you obviously, who pushed you that route, or did it just happen naturally?
I don't think there was ever really a point where I was like, oh, management, that's what I want to do. I think it sort of came naturally. Again, being part of a small business, you definitely get the opportunity to grow with them. I was really lucky. I was at Oyster Partnership, and they sort of believe in kind of growing their staff internally. So had that opportunity with them naturally as kind of my manager progressed, being sort of the top biller on the team, and kind of did a lot of help and support in implementing processes. I was able to progress as well. Yeah. And so I think I was also really lucky. Throughout that sort of period of time while I was there, I had 2 really good managers. Looking back, I'd always say they were definitely more mentors and really strong leaders than managers. And that definitely helped me get to kind of where I got to in the end as well.
Definitely. So did you ever have any, looking back on it, I mean, I wouldn't say anything you would change because, it is, well, is there anything you would change, I suppose, while we're talking about it?
I always find this one a really kind of tough one, because I think if you changed things, you maybe wouldn't have learned the lessons that you've learned. And I definitely have learned a lot of lessons from the things that have happened. I would just maybe say to just slow down and enjoy it a lot more. There's so many rewards which come with doing well. And I'm always quite hard on myself. I just think I always thought I wasn't doing well enough. And I didn't necessarily know, only working in one business, how what I was doing meant in the world of kind of recruitment. And yeah, I think, I'm always pushing myself to the next stage. You don't always have to be at that next stage as quickly as you think you do.
Okay. So who taught you, who gave you the inspiration to progress and, and be successful in, in your role?
Yeah, I think those mentors that I mentioned, one of them definitely taught me, I'd say, everything I know about kind of recruitment now, and not necessarily it's always all the basics, but it's just maybe he brought out the best in me and helped me build my personal brand.
Do you think it's really important to have a mentor in recruitment? Do you think like that's something needed, or do you think that it's just something that you were lucky to have? Or
I think there's management, isn't there? And then there's like mentorship and leadership. And so both of these two people were mentors and leaders. And I was inspired by both. They're both very different people, but they both done really well and are really successful.
cool.
And I looked up to them, and I never wanted to let them down. And I think that is a really good quality in a leader and a mentor, because they're kind of building that personal relationship with you, and it's not just kind of do as I say. It's like, okay, how can we get the best out of you?
Definitely. So tell me something. So like you've had this, great stint. Then you've joined obviously a good company where you are now, and you had a gap in between of where you wanted to figure out what that move was going to look like. And do you know what? It's really tough once you spent such a long time at one firm. It's very, and trust me, and I know this because of what I do, rec to rec, right? It's very, very difficult to find the next company and a process that you want to join that you can see your next stage of your career at, right? And it took you some time to do that, didn't it?
Yeah, I think my time at Oyster, I think, went quickly. And then like you look back and I'm like, wow, how did all of that happen in kind of over a 4-year period? It's sort of a bit unbelievable. And I guess when I left there, the reason for leaving mainly was I wanted to kind of understand a little bit more about me. I spent all 4 years working with one business, literally giving my all to that business. Like, what drives me? What do I want? I just didn't feel like money drove me anymore. Like, I was earning a lot of money. Having a lot of money is fantastic, but I was like, this isn't what I'm getting out of bed for. And I just needed a bit of time. Like, I'm quite driven in other things, I think, and I wanted to just kind of, a bit of a chill time.
Have a break.
Bit of time for me. I was like 27, worked so hard. It definitely took me like 1 or 2 years to kind of figure out what actually did drive me. And I wasn't sure if I was very driven, but I really am. Like, I'm so driven by my career. I just had to find that thing that did drive me.
Yeah.
And
it's put you where you are today. Yeah.
Got there. Yeah.
Good. So tell me about that. Tell me about where you are, like, where you're at with your role. What do you do?
Yeah. So I think I spent a really, really long time like figuring out what I wanted for the next stage in my career in terms of like the company, the person I worked for, and what was important to me. So what did I get out of bed for? And I think the first thing for me is like growth and personal growth and development. And I wanted to work somewhere where I felt that that company was invested in that for me, but also, again, like I said, the person I worked for knew how to get the best out of me and drive me forward. And ultimately, that's why I joined Deverell Smith. I felt that the kind of senior leadership team here were able to do that for me in kind of the next stage of my career. And I think, like we spoke quite a bit, like getting that right company for me right was like really, really important.
Yeah. You mentioned, and before we go into more detail about Deverell, like you got onboarded at a very difficult time, right? And you told me before that we'd done this pod, like the way that they dealt with it was, exceptionally good. So how was all that for you during lockdown?
Yeah, so I literally joined, I think Boris did his announcement on like the Monday night. I just got back from the pool, and then I joined like Deverell Smith on the Tuesday, and it was all sort of a bit of a whirlwind. It was like, okay, the country's in lockdown, and it was just never how I had expected to kind of start this like next stage of my career. but they were absolutely fantastic, like prime example of how a company should be kind of with remote onboarding. Everyone was always in touch, made that kind of best efforts to make sure I had like everything I needed at all stages, and like so many touch points.
Yeah.
And it definitely cemented my decision, okay, of the reason why I joined them. And I think as well, like, it was a difficult time. You hear stories about how other companies are being out there on the market. Don't necessarily know if that's true. It's always like rumors. But I think for me, I was like, Deverell Smith have been so honest this whole way through. They didn't need to tell us that they were thinking about doing this or if they were thinking about doing that. And I think, you know, honesty is something that goes a long way.
Fine. Good. So it's led you to where you are now, senior manager. You've got responsibilities again. You know, tell me about what is it you enjoy about being a manager? You know, before we're going to touch on anything else in detail.
I think for me, like, my personal growth is really important, but I love seeing the growth of other people. I love showing people something that I've done that's been successful and kind of giving them the tools to be able to use that. And I like seeing kind of people, like, teach people something and them going, yes, that works, or I'm building something too. And I think as much as I like being mentored, I like being a mentee, and that's good as well for my development as much as it is for theirs.
Yeah, it's a lot of satisfaction, right, when you see it working.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
I mean, that's the biggest part of it, right? And it's kind of led you to a new management role now. Have you got different plans of how you're going to approach it? Is there sort of the same methodology in line? Are you going to, you know, what's the plan for you now with your team?
Well, I think sometimes when you go into recruitment and you become a manager, no one necessarily always gives you like those tools or skills to be able to manage. You can kind of get formal training, etc. But when I was 27, managing a team of 9 compared to now, like, being much older and managing a team, I think you learn things and you learn a lot on the job, and it definitely comes with experience. And so I definitely wouldn't say I manage the way I did then now, but that's because of just time and like training and as I go. I wouldn't say necessarily kind of the team I had was necessarily managed badly or anything in the past. People would always look in the business and say, look, the way your team works is just so like tight, you know, you all know what you're doing, and it was a lot of camaraderie. But I am much more opening to kind of learning and listening from other people now, potentially as I was then.
Fine. What would you advise someone who has been in recruitment for a year or two and they're going through these motions, you know, like yourself, you know, what's your suggestion and help to them?
It's that like common thing, I guess, that everyone says, you know, like, there are highs and lows in this job, like, stick with it. Those that are resilient will get through it, and there's always a lesson to be learned at the end. So kind of, if things have gone wrong, reflect on why and change it. But it does come if you put in the hard work, if you set yourself goals and you set yourself objectives. And management's not for everyone. So you might not always know that, and you might try it, it might not work out, but that's okay.
Yeah. You've always got the principal route. You know, I did one with a girl called Jess a couple of weeks ago, and she was a principal and she didn't want to do the management, and it just wasn't for her. And it was like, okay, that's cool. Like, just be, you know, more selfish and worry about your own personal billings. And I think that's the good thing about recruitment. You can still utilize that route, right?
Exactly. Like, they're two totally different jobs. And I definitely think since I started in recruitment to kind of now, you see a lot more businesses having kind of different routes for people, different ways to go. I mean, at Deverell Smith, you can take what's called our account manager route, and you can go all the way up to account director. And that's, you know, it's not managing people, but it's managing business. And that's a lot of people here like that a lot more than the management route.
Good. So going back to where you are now in Deverell Smith, so we're going to and fro here.
Yeah.
What do you want to see from your team now? What are you trying to achieve? What's your main goal? You know, and also whilst we're touching on that, like, how do you know what that is? You know, have you sat down with someone in the business to sort of put a projected sort of strategy there, or do you know what that is? Like, have you drawn that out yourself?
Anyone that knows me will know, like, I'm a massive strategist, like massive planner.
Yeah.
So literally day one, like, there was a plan, but you've got to be open to those plans changing. I think if you're working towards a goal as a manager, it's really important to constantly be open with your team about what your goals are, and get their feedback as well.
Yeah.
I think sort of our kind of main goal at the moment is to build a really solid brand. I've always been about having a good reputation, doing the best job that I can do, and I would hate to be sort of known out there in the market as someone that's like not got back to my clients, not got back to my candidates, didn't follow up, wasn't consistent. You know, I think consistency is key in recruitment, and doing what you said you're going to do, and that's just a teeny tiny thing, which helps you build a brand.
Definitely. So have you got plans in your team to hire? What's the crack with everything happening now, like with COVID and, you know, the plans? Have they been affected badly, or?
No, Deverell Smith is still hiring. I think we've got two key growth areas. I'm lucky to kind of fall in both. One public sector, and the other is contract. It's a very, very strong permanent team here. Contract is always something that they've done, but I think need to go out, and we can see sort of the market opportunities there. I think it's about having those people come join us that are positive, on board with the culture, and consistent, like just work hard, do what they say you're going to do. I know they're just very like typical recruitment terms, but good people that want to be successful. And so, yeah, I think we're speaking, there's some people, really good people out there on the market, you know, that have unfortunately sort of been made redundant, and we're chatting to people to come join.
Good. So what do you sort of envisage in terms of, you know, if you interviewed someone, what do you want to see from them? What do you like for your team, and, you know, in your sort of style, if you like?
I'm a massive process-driven person. I think as a contract recruiter, you've sort of got to be able to work by set process, sort of have kind of clear goals every day, know what you're doing. And so someone that sets themselves like their own personal objectives, that comes into work, works hard, and put in the time, knows what needs to be done. People that are just likable, you know, like you want to chat to them, but they're inquisitive, they ask questions, they listen. I know it sounds, I feel like I'm sounding like just a typical kind of recruitment person that's just saying all the same like words.
But still, everyone's got,
honesty goes a long way in this business, and so does listening. And if anyone's got those kind of communication skills where they can build rapport, then that's what you want to see.
Good. Fine. So, no, look, it's been really interesting to sort of hear your sort of journey and your story. I mean, look, you know, to sort of go back to it, you know, you've had a successful stint at, you know, a firm for 4 or 5 years and worked your way up in the business, and you managed, you said like 9 people at the age of 27. And then at that point, you sort of kind of decided that you needed to have a break and make sure that, you know, where you're going in your career and what you wanted to achieve. And, you know, look, you know, you're back to where you're meant to be, right? You know, you've gone to another really good company, and you're in that position again where you've learned a hell of a lot. You've probably had a lot more life experiences as well, and
absolutely,
you know, it does help, you know, to get that, you know, behind it all.
It's
go on.
I was gonna say, like, it all, I think the first 4 years all came sort of very, very quickly, and kind of a couple of years later down the line, you could look at sort of where I am in my career and think, you know what, she's not actually moved up. But in terms of how I feel about myself, and the skills that I've learned in that period of time, I definitely feel like I've moved forward, and I feel like now kind of taking that time has given me the skills that I need to be able to progress quickly and move forward again. And I feel like I've definitely found the right environment where I can do that.
Yeah, good.
It feels really positive at this stage.
Do you find it, and something I'm going to touch on, what, like, you know, a particular subject, a lot of the industry, right, you know, is varied, okay, across sort of male and females in recruitment. And there's a lot of females in recruitment that are looking to sort of progress and get their way up there. Do you think that being a manager, or for them to have that management responsibility and be in that position, you know, is how does it make you feel? Like, is it quite empowering as, you know, female in the market? Or
I always think sometimes in this job you've got to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm being very stereotypical here, but I think a lot of the time, women especially, we don't. We're much better at sort of putting ourselves down rather than kind of pitching ourselves higher than we do. And you've got to have confidence in yourself. And I think sometimes even looking back, I was doing really well, but I wouldn't believe it, and I didn't have confidence in what I was doing. And it takes other people to sometimes say to you, no, look, like, this is what you've done. And so I feel like now you kind of mention it, like, okay, there aren't many kind of female directors out there and businesses, and actually at Deverell Smith we're lucky to have a few, and I'd love one day to sort of join them and be one of them as well.
Amazing. Good. Well, I wanted to touch on it, you know, as I've got you on the call, and you've sort of set this whole, you've painted this whole picture of this career that you've had, which, you know, has just gone up and up, and, you know, it's good to see. So, but no, look, I really appreciate your time. You know, it's been good to get an insight onto your journey, as I said. But look, if anyone listening out there that's interested in, you know, in hearing anything else, or to talk to Emilia directly, you know, I'm going to put your link to your LinkedIn page on there, so they can reach out to you directly, and, you know, check out the business. You know, they're doing some amazing things at the minute at Deverell Smith, and there's a lot going on there in the company. And, you know, if you want to ask some particular questions, you know, feel free to ask me, or, as I said, reach out to Emilia directly. And, again, thanks so much for your time. I know you're really busy. And
thanks so much. And like, as you said, if there's anyone that's got any questions from sort of anything that I've said, or is interested in hearing more about Deverell Smith, then definitely get in touch.
I'm sure they will. But again, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. Talk to you soon.